Look, there's a fungus gnat. Should have known that was gonna happen. Hey plant fam! Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jaclynn. This is my jungle, and if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you. I know that this is a video you guys have been waiting for. So today we're going to be talking all about pests. Pests 101. So I'm going to cover what I call the big four: fungus gnats, mealybugs, spider mites, and thrips. Those are the ones that I feel are the most common. These are the four that I deal with the most. These are the four that I am experienced in treating, preventing, diagnosing. All of that we are going to cover today. I'm going to go through one by one and explain everything that you need to know and everything personally that I have found that has worked for me to get rid of and prevent these bugs from happening. So I think that the most common pest that we encounter as plant parents is probably fungus gnats. And even though they don't necessarily do damage to our plants, they are the biggest nuisance on the face of the planet. If you have more than a few houseplants in your home, which I'm assuming you do if you're watching this video, then you know you have not been able to just freely drink your coffee in the morning without worrying about a fungus gnat landing in it, or just get any work done on a screen at night without them flying in your face. So it is definitely the most common, I would say, is safe to assume, and one of the most irritating to deal with. So I am going to cover everything you need to know to diagnose, prevent, and treat all of these issues. So when it comes to diagnosing fungus gnats, it's really not that hard. They make themselves known. They fly in your face, you're clapping them left and right. You just get to a point in like houseplant care where you don't care anymore. You're just killing bugs with your bare hands, no matter how nasty it is. I am clapping gnats left and right. A lot of the times you're going to notice them when you go to water your plants. They will just like fly out of the soil because that is typically where they live. They love moisture. They love the moist soil. So the adult fungus gnats, they're the teeny tiny little flies, smaller than fruit flies, and they go into your soil, they lay their eggs, and they just keep on making babies. More babies and more babies and more babies. I don't remember off the top of my head their average lifespan. I probably should have wrote that down, but I'll put it on screen for you guys. A lot of bugs only live for like 2 weeks tops is usually their life cycle. So any type of treatment that you do, you're going to have to repeat. So you want to stop their life cycle from happening when it comes to any pest, and fungus gnats are not any different in that regard. So basically you got to make sure that you're killing all of the adults, taking care of all the adults so that they cannot continue to lay eggs and make more. But you're also going to want to get rid of the larvae. So if you've got freaking fungus gnats flying all over the place, one of the best things and the cheapest things that you can do first is to get yourself some yellow sticky traps. They are very unattractive. They stick to everything. They might stick to your plant leaves, and if they do, you should definitely try using oil, like an olive oil or any kind of cooking oil that you have to kind of get the glue unstuck from the leaf. They are quite sticky, but they're effective in taking out some of the adults from the population as well as diagnosing the issue. So if you're unsure if you have fungus gnats and you just want to check to see if you've got anything flying around, you can throw some of the yellow stickies out into some of your plants and see what you catch. So I'm going to show you obviously what mine look like, and they are covered in fungus gnats. So that is how I can kind of get a grasp on how big the issue is. And it has been quite the issue in here that we have been dealing with the fungus gnats, because my anthuriums stay a little bit more on the moist side. It's pretty humid in here. And once you've got just a few fungus gnats, they reproduce like crazy. So yellow stickies is a great way to diagnose and somewhat kind of take some of them out. It's not necessarily something that I would consider a treatment. It's not going to solve the problem, but it can definitely help you diagnose how bad the problem is, make sure there aren't any other bugs flying around. We'll get to that later. And it's going to help you get a grasp for how many fungus gnats you're dealing with, because I put some stickies out and within just a couple of days they were like full, and I was like, okay, clearly it's time to do a little bit more than just the traps that I have, because I also have the bug catching devices that have lights in them, a fan in them, and on the bottom they have a sticky trap. So they basically attract the bugs to the light, the fan sucks them down in there, and they get stuck on the sticky trap. There's lots of these all over Amazon. There's tons of different brands, so just you can sift through and see which ones you like. I have ones from a brand called Co-Kit that is literally just because they sent them to me for free. They're not necessarily any better or any different than the rest of them on the market. I think the other common one is called Catchy. So they've got lots of stuff available, and I can certainly leave a few of those things linked down below for you. I'll leave all of this linked down below. A lot of it is in my description box if you scroll through. A lot of the links for things that I use regularly are going to be in there, just in case you're ever wondering. So my first line of defense for the fungus gnats is always going to be the catchers. So those do really well for me when I don't have a huge outbreak. So if you're just looking for general treatment and prevention, I think that these are great options. They're just not going to take care of the problem if you have a large infestation. So what do you do then if you have a infestation and these fungus gnats are driving you insane? Because they do. They taunt you. They fly around your face. So the most common thing that people are going to tell you are mosquito bits, or I think BTI is like another name for it. I'll leave everything on screen for you. I've used it in the past. It was like the first thing that I tried. I used to just throw the mosquito bits onto the top of the soil, and I honestly just never really felt like it got rid of the fungus gnats completely. I'm sure that it got rid of a good amount of them, but I never felt like it got rid of them completely. I have heard different stories from people who make a mosquito bit like tea. So they kind of like soak it in the water overnight and then water their plants with that, and people have had success with that. I personally do not think that they work. That is my personal opinion. If it works for you, fantastic. It has just not worked out for me in the past, and I just don't like using it. So I'm kind of a crunchy granola hippie in a lot of ways. And I love doing things as natural as possible in as many areas of my life as I possibly can. And when it comes to pests, I am the same. I don't use chemicals. I don't use harsh pesticides or anything like that in my home. That's not any shade to anybody who does. I just choose not to have toxic chemicals in my home. Same goes for the things that I clean with and cook with and expose myself to in my home. So that carries over to my plants as well. And one of the only thing, I'm not gonna lie to you, the only thing that's ever gotten rid of fungus gnats completely for me are beneficial nematodes. They are just these little microscopic dudes that go into your soil. They don't look like bugs. They come in a little powder packet. You throw them in your water it into your plants, and you're done. They live there for months. they will continue to survive and thrive there for months, and you can just continue to do that a couple of times a year, and bye-bye fungus gnats. So when it comes to the adults, I do always recommend the bug catching devices. They are very inexpensive and very easy to set up. I don't have to change out the sticky all that often. And the beneficial nematodes. So the nematodes are going to take care of the eggs and the larvae and make sure that your fungus gnats are not reproducing, but you definitely still want to get a handle on the adults because they're annoying. Just want to make sure that you're getting the adults and the larvae, and the best way that I have found in the last few years to do that are the bug catchers and the beneficial nematodes. So I get all of my beneficial bugs from Nature's Good, guys. Unfortunately, I don't have like a discount code or anything for you guys, but they have really good shipping, really fast shipping, and I haven't had any problems with it. So I think that's pretty much everything on fungus gnats. Let me know if you have any more questions about anything that I didn't cover in the comments below. Okay, so I lied. One last thing about fungus gnats that people will tell you is that bottom watering will help, and kind of, but not really. So letting your soil dry out is gonna help for sure, because like I said, they thrive in the moist soil, the moist environment, but that's just not always the case for every plant. I have some stuff in self-watering pots where it stays moist pretty much all the time. So it's not always an option, but definitely keep that in mind, because I'm sure that somebody is going to say that in the comments, that you can just bottom water and you won't have fungus gnats, and that is not necessarily true, because they still exist. Doesn't matter which side you put the water in. And bottom watering is not actually something that I recommend you do every single time that you water. You do still need to flush your soil every once in a while from the top down. So I think that's everything about fungus gnats for real this time. Which means we get to move on to my favorite, Mealybugs. Yay! And if you guys know me, you know Hoya are my thing. They've been my thing for a long time, even though I'm not gonna lie to you, I've gotten rid of like a lot of them. So Mealybugs, love, love, love Hoya. Mealybugs are those nasty white fuzzy dudes that you see in the little corners and crevices of your plants. So obviously the easiest way to diagnose whether or not you have mealybugs is to just look at your plants. And if you see weird white stuff and then you touch it and it's kind of like, it's like kind of fibrous. Their little egg sacs are kind of like fibrous, but the bugs themselves they're just nasty. And they are a type of scale bug, which is why I said earlier that I haven't really dealt much with scale in the past, but mealybugs are actually technically a type of scale. They don't move that much, mealybugs, I'm not gonna lie, unless they want to. I've seen one like run across my plant before and I was like, what the hell? I didn't know you could even move that quickly. And they definitely come in like different colors and different sizes. Some are really big, some are white, some are kind of pink. And then you get the really, really big mealybug destroyers, which are apparently like good mealybugs because they eat the smaller mealybugs. You guys, mealybugs are just, they're so icky. I think it's because they're kind of like hairy. Like they're kind of like, they look, I don't know. It's gross. It grosses me out, and I don't know why. Even though I do regularly smush them with my fingers because you just get desensitized over time. They are probably one of the most irritating pests that you can have aside from fungus gnats. I think that the first two that I'm covering here today are the most annoying because they're very persistent, and mealybugs are such a pain in the butt to get rid of. So obviously diagnosing them is going to be you noticing white stuff, white spots on your plants. The leaves are going to yellow and fall off eventually because mealybugs are basically just sucking all the juice and all the life out of your plants. That is why they love succulents and cacti and Hoya, and why it's more common to find them on those plants as opposed to aroids. Aroids absolutely can still get mealybugs, but it's just not as common. So how in the heck and bob do we get rid of them? My first line of defense for mealybugs is always to immediately take them to the shower or the sink and put it on full blast and blast those suckers off of the plant. You're going to want to get in every little crevice and every little corner that you possibly can and try and just blast them all off. You can even take a little Q-tip and get into the little corners and crevices to try and get them out. They are a pain, but one of the best ways to remove them is to physically remove them from the plant, which is time consuming and irritating, but it is the best thing to do first, in my opinion, so that you can just get as many of them off of the plant as possible first. And then the next thing that I do is blast those suckers with alcohol. So I use 70% isopropyl alcohol, and I don't dilute it anymore. I used to dilute it, and then I was like, I don't think this is working. So now I just spray straight up alcohol on them, and I haven't had any issues with that so far. Look, there's a fungus gnat. Should have known that was going to happen. I didn't even get it. Anyway, so yeah, I just literally spray straight up alcohol on these guys, and they kind of just like melt. They cannot survive it. So the next thing I do is I just completely drench the plant. I get a little spray bottle and I completely drench every single corner, nook, and cranny of the plant that I possibly can. You're still going to want to go in with like a Q-tip. You can even put alcohol on the Q-tip and just kind of like physically remove the mealybugs because they are so resilient. I swear I have thought that I've gotten them all off of a plant before, and then a week later I see more of them, and it's just so annoying. So again, it is a process that you're going to have to repeat, unlike the nematodes with the fungus gnats where you can kind of just water them in and forget about it. The rest of the pests are going to require that you repeat the process multiple times before you can get rid of them in order to, like I said earlier, cut off the life cycle. So if you have adult mealybugs, they're laying eggs. If you kill all the adults and you miss some of the eggs, you're still going to get a little itty bitty. You'll see them. They're smaller little baby mealybugs, which they're so annoying. They're very attracted to Hoya blooms, any bloom, because they're very juicy, and new growth. So your new leaves on your Hoya, always inspect your new leaves, because if you have mealybugs on your plant, that's where they're going to be 100% of the time. I can guarantee it. So definitely be really careful about removing them off of new baby leaves. You don't want to like break off the leaves. So a lot of the time I try to just be very, very gentle with like the hose, the faucet, and maybe just like gently with a little Q-tip, because I've broken off leaves before and that was devastating. So physically removing them and then blasting them with just straight up alcohol. You can mix in whatever you want. Like if you want to do insecticidal soap, girl, go for it. You want to do neem oil, I'm not going to stop you. I just don't really care for that stuff, and I don't really have time for that stuff. Neem oil needs to be wiped away. Soap needs to be washed off. Alcohol just dissolves, so you can spray it directly on there and never need to wash it off, and the plant is going to be fine. Just obviously don't put it back into bright light after you do that. I do tend to treat most of my plants at night as well, because that's when they're little, they're closed. They're not like absorbing stuff. Like they're, what's the word? It starts with an S. I'm not a botanist, you guys, but mealybugs, I hate them. So yeah, you just blast, they literally will melt under, any bug will melt pretty much under straight alcohol. So your best bet to keep the mealybugs away is to just continue doing that, making sure that like once a week you're taking the plant that is infested to the sink, rinsing it, treating it. If you swear that you're getting all of it off the leaves and they're still there, then you definitely want to check the roots, because root mealies are a thing. And sometimes they get down into the soil and they make a home down there, and you just don't even see them until you see them and you're like, holy crap, that's a lot of mealybugs. So a lot of the time, if you're continuing to struggle, I do recommend rinsing the roots completely of soil. You can spray the roots with alcohol as well, and just make sure you're sterilizing the whole entire plant, top to bottom. Keep it in water for a little while so you can monitor, and then you can eventually repot the plant mealybug free. They're so annoying, but definitely drop your like insecticidal soaps or whatever you use in the comments below. Unfortunately, a lot of sprays just haven't worked for me in the past, so straight up alcohol is what we do now, and it's been working, so I'm not mad about it. Spider mites! Yay! If you're an alocasia person or a more aroid person, then you've probably dealt with spider mites before, and the easiest way to diagnose spider mites is by the discoloration that you will see on the leaves. So there is a pretty specific look to spider mite damage that you're gonna see on your plants. It almost makes it pixelated. It makes it look like all these teeny tiny little damage spots on your plant. Obviously, I'm going to show you guys some examples, and then upon closer inspection, I was so close that time. Upon closer inspection, you will usually find webbing and itty bitty little teeny tiny mites crawling along the webs. They're not literally spiders, they are mites. They just kind of have a lot of legs, and whenever things have a lot of legs, they call them spiders. A lot of things that we call spiders are not actually classified as spiders. But anyway, spider mites are very, very tiny little mites, and they will definitely wreak havoc on your plants. So the best way to know if you have spider mites, the two most common ways that I recognize spider mites is the discoloration of the leaves and the webbing that you'll usually find around where the leaf and the petiole meet and things like that. A lot of the time you'll find the web kind of just chilling under there, but it can be anywhere. Sometimes you get it in like the little butthole that I call the butthole of the plant, like right here, this area. They'll just like make a little web for whatever reason in that spot, and they will just eat your leaves, and they'll do it pretty quickly. But the good thing about spider mites is they're pretty easy to get rid of, because you just throw the plant in the shower or in the sink and wash it off, and bye-bye to all the mites. They go right down the sink. They don't really go anywhere else to lay their eggs, so you don't have to worry about them being in the soil. They stay on the plant for the most part. So it is pretty easy to just wash them away, and that is the first thing that I would recommend that you do pretty much with any pest, is to just like throw it in the shower, wash as many of them away as you possibly can, and then move on to your treatment. So after I give my spider mite infested plant a nice shower, I'll let the leaves dry off, and then the next thing that I go in with is the Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. This has been something I've been using for a few years now. It works really great for me. It is not a chemical pesticide. It is made from a specific type of bacteria that basically like corrupts the bugs and they die. So like they are exposed to this bacteria, and their biology just doesn't mix well. So it is pretty effective at getting rid of the spider mites, and it does not do any harm to your plants. Of course, you can use any type of insecticidal soap. You can even use the straight up alcohol, like I said, if you want to, but my go-to is the Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. The reason why I don't recommend Captain Jack's and don't use it on mealybugs is because it doesn't work. It's not effective on mealybugs, but it is effective on spider mites and the thrips that we're going to talk about next. So that is definitely what I recommend and what I do when it's just I'm noticing them here and there. The other things that you can do obviously are pesticides, and I use an all-natural systemic because, again, crunchy granola, if you want to use a chemical systemic, then you're not going to have any pests and you can just ignore all of this. But if you want to do things healthier and a more natural way, I definitely recommend SNS 209. It is a systemic, all-natural pesticide that is made from rosemary. So your plants will uptake it, and how a systemic works is it goes into the leaf tissue, and then when the pest munches on that leaf, they ingest the thing that they're not supposed to ingest, and it kills them. So rosemary oil is toxic to many bugs, and it has been a great line of defense for me. I tend to just water it into all of my plants every single time I water. I get it on Amazon. I will leave it linked down below for you guys. It's pretty expensive, but it is very effective at preventing and keeping infestations from happening. So a lot of the times I'll see webbing and be like, oh shoot, spider mites. But on closer inspection, there are no actual mites. So I know that they're popping up because it's normal for that to happen. I should have prefaced this video with how absolutely normal pests are. You're not doing anything wrong. This is just a part of the plant parent process. You're not a bad plant parent if you have these. I have all these bugs in this room and my plants are fine. So they're not something to freak out about either. You just need to have all the things you need in your arsenal to take care of them and just be well equipped and well educated in diagnosing them, which is what I'm hoping to help you with here today. So I will see the webbing and not see any bugs, and then it won't spread. So I just clean the plant and I treat the plant and I move on with life, and I don't actually ever really see the spider mites. The same thing is true for the next pest that we're going to talk about. Sometimes I'll see the damage, but not necessarily the pest itself, because the systemic is helping to prevent that from getting out of control. It's not going to prevent bugs. Nothing is going to prevent bugs 100%, but you can keep it to a minimum at least. So I do love the SNS 209 for that. It came highly recommended from some of you guys actually a while back, and I got it and I've been using it for a while now, and I can confidently say that I recommend it because it's done a really good job keeping things to a minimum in here. So the next thing that I'm going to recommend, if you don't want to use anything and you have an active infestation and you're just trying to kickstart your preventive care, girl, beneficial mites are going to be your best bet. So again, Nature's Good Guys is where I get everything. I typically go for Amblysius cucumaris. Nature's Good Guys website is very, very easy to navigate. You can actually search by pest. So if you're having issues with spider mites, you can search which bugs you should buy based off of your pest. They give you all the information that you need to know about how to release them, when to release them, how many you need. It's all on the website. 10 out of 10 recommend checking it out. Obviously, I'm going to leave it linked down below for you guys. And I absolutely love using the beneficial mites. I just put a bunch of them out in here, which you guys would have seen in another video. And I 10 out of 10 could not possibly recommend it more. Obviously, I stopped using the systemic and the Captain Jacks a couple of weeks before I introduced the beneficial bugs, because the pesticides will kill the good bugs too. So if you're using any kind of chemical or any kind of systemic, you want to make sure that you stop doing that in advance before you bring in beneficial bugs. So that is where I'm at right now. Release the beneficial stuff. once I'm confident that all of the beneficial stuff has died off, I will go back to implementing my SNS 209 into my watering routine until I feel like it's time to bring the beneficials back in again. I do it at least twice a year. So spider mites, you guys, rinse them off, spray them. If that's not enough, then you're definitely going to want to start considering a systemic or a beneficial bug. And just keep your leaves clean. Clean leaves are not an ideal environment for pests. Healthy plants are not an ideal environment for pests, period. So like the health of your plant and the health of your soil is really, really important as well. I always encourage people to think of your soil the same way you think of your gut. A lot of your plant's immune system and all of the good bacteria and all of the microbiome that it needs is in the soil, and it's up to you to make sure that you keep that where it's supposed to be, which is part of the reason why I don't like using chemicals. I don't like using harsh chemical systemics or pesticides because it does kill off all the good stuff too. So you definitely want to be conscious about making sure that you have all the good bacteria in your soil to keep your plants healthy. Healthy plants are far less susceptible to pests than unhealthy plants. So there's a reason why that plant you keep neglecting in the corner is the only one that keeps getting spider mites. The bugs, like, they know. So this is just a theory, but there's been some science lately that has come out to suggest that plants actually make noises, and that when a plant is in distress, it makes noises more frequently. So my theory is that the bugs can either hear that or they can sense that in some way, and they just know when a plant is not as healthy, and they usually go for those. They target those. So keeping your plants healthy, well watered, well fertilized, keeping the soil fresh. If the soil's really old, definitely time to replace it. Make sure that you have everything all squared away with your plants. Keep them clean. Don't let dust and debris and cat hair. There's so much cat hair on my plant leaves. If you have an animal in your home, you know. It's really hard to keep them clean, but every few times that I water, I try to make an effort to bring my plants to the sink and give them a nice little shower. So definitely consider the importance. Think about it. I encourage you to just think about it if you haven't thought about it before, the importance of your soil health. And one of the things that I do to keep my soil healthy is I use fish shit, and I've talked about it before. I'll leave the video linked up here for everything that I put in my water and why, because I do have that in there. It is a highly concentrated fish poo. It is not your standard fish emulsion. It is not fish tank water. It is it's good shit. Your plants are going to love it. It puts all the good bacteria in there, and your plants will thrive and be super healthy, I promise. So I'll obviously leave that link down below for you guys as well. And I think I covered everything that I wanted to about spider mites. So let's move on to the big bad thrips. Oh, Thrippies, how I despise you. And the best way to know whether or not you have thrips is the damage that they do to your plants. Ideally, you're going to want to catch them before they can do this damage, but a lot of the ways that I recognize that there are some thrips floating around is the damage that they leave. And if you really look, a lot of the times you will actually just see the adult thrips chilling on a plant, like this one that we found in Home Depot, where they were just chilling. They were loving this alocasia. And that is definitely slightly terrifying, I'm not going to lie, because thrips fly and they can travel plant to plant fairly quickly. So thrips are definitely not something you want to mess around with. They can spread very quickly throughout your collection. I have noticed that Monstera, they just seem to really like Monstera, seem to be more susceptible, alocasia, and just like aeroids in general, they seem to like. I haven't seen as much thrip damage on Hoya and more like succulent-y plants. That's not to say that they don't attack those as well. It just doesn't seem to be like their preferred plant for whatever reason. So thrips, oh, you can tell that you have thrips when you get brown, kind of like crusty spots on your leaves. You'll see streaks. They definitely like to just eat the leaf like in a straight line. You'll see just like straight brown lines, usually in little clusters. You'll see nice little brown spots that they leave behind for you because they're eating your leaf tissue, and then they poop on your leaf, and they just do tons and tons of physical damage to your leaves. And it can happen very quickly if you have more than a few adult thrips on a plant. So obviously, if you can see them, they're there. They look different than fungus gnats. They're longer and skinnier. They're smaller. Their wings lay flat on their body, so you don't typically see them. Their wings, like if you catch them on a sticky traps are a great way to diagnose whether or not you have thrips. People say that they're more attracted to the blue stickies, but I catch them very easily on the yellow stickies as well. And you can tell the difference between the fungus gnats and the thrips on the stickies. I've done a video about this in the past. I'll try to grab the footage and throw it over for you guys to look at, where I showed the difference between a fungus gnat and a thrip on a sticky trap. I don't have any adults right now, or I would show you. Thankfully, haven't really had that problem since I did that video. That's actually pretty popular now, where I just like treated my whole collection for thrips. The first time I had them, I freaked out, which I don't recommend doing. Don't freak out, because like it's gonna be fine. You're gonna get rid of them, and your plants are gonna maybe suffer a little bit of damage, but ultimately they're gonna be fine. So they do like to leave their brown marks on your plants. And another thing that you'll notice if you have thrips on your plants is the new growth will come in just kind of like wonky. It just doesn't grow right. Like the new leaves are just not coming in the right size or the right shape. So that is another indication that you might have thrips. So the best way that I'm going to tell you to get rid of thrips is to use Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. And I don't use it every single time because they will eventually become resistant to it, which is the problem. It's actually a big problem with the thrips, that they just continuously become resistant to the pesticides that we're using, and we have to come up with new things to use. But Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew has been working really well for me for the past few years. I will, like I said, cycle through using that and like alcohol and maybe another type of like insecticidal spray. I have one from Urban Gardener that I really like. That's the Say No to Bugs spray. So I will cycle through just in an effort to make sure that they're not becoming resistant. But my go-to, my first line of defense is that Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. That's like a tongue twister. Anyway, obviously you're going to want to isolate the plant, give it a nice rinse, all of those good things. But of course the thrips can just like fly away. So you're going to want to rinse them just for like the larvae and all that stuff. You're going to want to wash them away. But the fun thing about thrips, the really fun thing about thrips, is that they chose to lay their eggs within the leaf tissue. So if you have significant thrip damage on a leaf and you've gotten rid of all the adults, you go girl, you got rid of all the adults, there's probably still eggs in the leaf tissue. So girl, if you can, just get rid of that leaf. If you've got a plant that has a lot of leaves on it and like 2 or 3 of them have thrip damage, just get rid of them. Get rid of those leaves completely, because 2 weeks from now you're gonna have some adult thrips. And like I said before, you really have to stop these bugs in their life cycle. You just have to stop the cycle from happening, because even if you get rid of all the adults, you might still have eggs, and larvae. And that's probably the most irritating thing about dealing with the thrips. So keep that in mind. If you have a very heavily damaged leaf, they probably had enough time to put their spawn in the leaf tissue. So burn it, throw it out, do whatever you gotta do. Do not leave it in your home. And then of course, I'm going to continue to recommend the beneficial bugs. So beneficial mites, even the nematodes. The nematodes are really great for helping with any thrip larva that might go into your soil. And the beneficial mites are definitely going to help take care of any bugs that you've got floating around on your plants. So one of the best ways that I go about preventing the thrips in here is trying to keep the windows closed, because they will just fly in through the window. If you're wondering where your bugs came from because you haven't brought any new plants in a while, they come in from outside, babe. They live outside and they will come inside your home and be like, oh, it's so nice and warm and cozy in here, and I'm just gonna make a home here. So if you leave your windows open, especially in the summertime, you do make your plants susceptible to the thrips, because they love the warm weather. They usually go away in the winter at least. So you definitely want to be on top of them in the summer months, because they're out of control. It's felt like they've been like more aggressive in the last few years with everybody that I talk to that grows, and I think they're starting to become resistant to the stuff that that we're using again, and they're like super thrips, and it's awful. So I really don't want that to happen for you guys. So it's really, really important to know what to look for. So if you see that damage, you better act immediately. Isolate the plant, treat the plant, and then definitely consider getting yourself some beneficial bugs if it's a consistent problem, or if you just have a lot of plants and you don't want to risk it like me. So yeah, I think that we covered everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I'm probably going to be editing it and be like, I forgot that one thing, but that's my fault for not writing a script for my videos. I write some notes and we wing it. So hopefully you guys learned something here today. I hope that you at least will know how to diagnose a problem moving forward if you feel like you have a pest. And I hope that you feel well equipped to know what to do if you do find a pest. Obviously, in the comments below, I would love to hear from you guys what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what are the most common bugs that you deal with. I would love to dive a little bit deeper into flat mites. I do not subscribe to the idea that sulfur is the only way to get rid of them. I think that beneficial mites would take care of the problem. I think that the alcohol spray that I use will kill pretty much anything. So I refuse to believe that there's only one option for flat mites. They're microscopic, so it's a little bit harder to know if you actually have them. One way to know that you have them is if, especially on your Hoya, they're very prevalent on Hoya, you'll be getting very like nubby growth, or a leaf keeps on trying to produce and it falls off. You get lots of new growth points that never do anything. So if you have Hoya that are doing that, it is very possible that you have flat mites, which are fun because we don't know as much about them as we do other pests currently. So I would say if you want to do the sulfur, you do you, boo-boo. I can't use that stuff in my house. It smells terrible. But if you want to do that, more power to you. People have had a lot of success with it. I've heard diatomaceous earth is a great way to get rid of them, is a more natural way to get rid of pests. I personally haven't tried it, but that is why I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you've done and what you've tried, what's worked for you for pests in the past, and what hasn't. This is all a learning experience. Like I said, I'm not a botanist. I just have a lot of plants. And I've been growing them for a long time, and I've dealt with a lot of stuff, a lot of pests, and I have a lot of experience that I like sharing with you guys in hopes that it will help you all become better plant parents, and myself included. I learn a lot from you guys as well, and I just really love this community. I have been thinking about starting our own Discord server. If that's something you guys would be interested in, it would be open for everybody. You don't have to be a member or pay or anything like that. It's totally free, and I think it would be a great way for us to hang out and chat and be able to like share pictures, because you guys are always telling me, I wish I could send you a picture. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I've really been looking forward to filming it. If you have more questions, definitely leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. But this is my Pests 101 video where we covered the most common pests that we deal with. Again, you're not a bad plant parent if you have pests, because girl, that would mean that I was a bit. Do you think I'm a bad plant parent? That's offensive. That's offensive. Anyway, I love you guys so very much. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are out there in the world. Definitely give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out in my channel. Hit the notification bell. Leave me a comment down below. Obviously, leave me all the bug emojis if you watched this whole entire video. I really appreciate the engagement. Again, it does really help my channel out a lot. And I hope you guys are so good out there. I hope you don't have any pests, but if you do, I hope this video helped. And don't forget to spread kindness. Don't forget to stay hydrated, fam. And I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.